Hello, welcome to the Lana'thel build. To start, we're going to be using EVA foam. I got a 4-pack from Harbor Freight, and I just took one sheet because it was mock-up, and of course you need like an X-Acto style knife and your paper pattern. Lay it on there, looks good. Make sure your blade is sharp too, and of course something to outline the pattern with. To transfer it, I used chalk, although I really think that in the future I'm going to be using like a Sharpie or something, because the chalk was a little bit thick in the outline and it was a little bit rough to like get some of the smaller detailing in with this. So I don't really recommend it unless, you know, you're doing like an edge of that's going to be beveled, or not beveled. Yeah, maybe beveled, embossed, whatever the term is. Or if it's a very thick line. With this though, there's a lot of smaller detailing, you know, like in the curves and the shape and everything, and it made it a little bit bulkier than it probably should have. So I had to go back and refine it later on. But to start, you know, it looks good. It's easy enough to see on the darker foam. And, you know, as you can see here, there were a couple lines that I had to reconnect, and you can see how really thick it is. And of course, placing the pattern back down on there to get an edge that I had forgotten, marking stuff off. And it's good for coloring in areas where you're going to completely be cutting off the foam. And yay, basic outline's done. Okay, now what do I need to do? Right, refine some of those edges. And take the blade, and you want to make sure you cut away from yourself, and making sure you have a sharp blade is also really, really important. Like, oh my goodness, my blade was not sharp at all in this, and that it worked okay, except mostly like around the corners and stuff. Around the curves, it was a little bit more difficult, but I did get through. As you can see, you know, just kind of like going over it a couple times. I'm so glad this is, you know, like super cheap foam, which works great for a lot of builds, but for Lana'thel, I think I'm going to be trying to find a thinner foam in the future, but for the first mock-up it works. And you know, you can see I started like popping it out, and then I start like running my hand over some spots where I'm not sure if, you know, I've actually cut the foam out there or not. It's the best way for me to tell, because it's like, oh, can't really see it. Nope, did I get that card? Nope, gotta do it. Gotta do the curves. Curves are exceptionally difficult. You gotta be really, really careful when doing them, because most of the time they will come out jagged. But the great thing about foam and doing curves is that you can always sand it down. Like, it's so much easier to sand down, like especially small ones. Just to keep in mind, you know, using like a little Dremel or even hand sanding if it's small enough and you're worried about it. And I just popped it out. It was really easy to pop out for the most part. Obviously, there were some spots, because my blade was dull, that I had a little bit more of a difficult time. But making it out of one solid piece of foam definitely made it a lot easier. Obviously, when I do the final build, I'll be most likely using multiple layers and pieces, but to start, you know, getting like the general shape, making sure it's the proper proportion to my face and my head, you know, seeing how thick and heavy, or not just heavy, how thick or like how deep I want to make it eventually, you know, because this is going to be a huge helm, like extending antlers on either side of my face kind of thing. And, you know, putting the paper back on top of it, making sure, okay, yeah, things are around where they should be. As you can see, some of the foam is popping out, and so I just went back and retraced some of it to cut out more pieces. And I decided, you know what, that's going to be a whole separate piece on the very front of my face, so I'm just going to cut that whole thing off. And so cut that. I'm going to have a better angle hopefully next time too. Yay! Basic shape. Okay. Get the pattern back out. Check it. See how the proportions are. You know, they look pretty good, but there are definitely some spots where the curves should be more narrow. So that's pretty much what I was doing here. making that partial circle a little bit bigger, making that antler a little more narrow, but keeping the curve, and then of course starting to mark out where the beveling would be, because that is going to be obviously not flat and not just built up with a paint detail, but it will actually be shaped when I make the final helm. So, you know, making that curve a little bigger. Some of these curves are going to have gems settled into them, so I also have to make adjustments for that when I eventually do another mock-up and do more shaping, things like that. But chalk is really great for this part. Like, it's definitely one of my favorite things to use. It makes it so much easier to just, you know, see where the detailing is going to be. And it makes a really great guide as well when you do any kind of sanding, or if you choose to use, what's it called? Yeah. An X-Acto knife to, you know, do your angles, because some people do. You're brave. I can't do that. For me, definitely either a Dremel, or if you have access to it, a belt sander makes that so much easier. So yeah, just kind of narrowly cutting it down a little bit more here, popping off the excess and tossing it to the side. Because, okay, yeah, definitely better. Just a little bit more, you know, it's just kind of like silly detail work that I'm doing at that point. And toss it off to the side. Good. Ready to start marking where, you know, the beveling would be on that. And put this back down. Make sure everything lines up. A little bit more trimming to do. Although I recommend also using something like poster board or oak tag for your base pattern for something like this, rather than flimsy printer paper. It's a lot more sturdy. It'll hold up more to, you know, multiple uses. And this one works fine for now, but I will be transferring it to poster board or oak tag the next chance I get. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my first Lana'thel build video. If you liked what you see, click subscribe, comment, give me a thumbs up, or if you are so inclined, throw some money at my Patreon. Just $1 a month gets you full access to the feed, and you get to see behind the scenes of everything that goes into, well, my videos. And so if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section below. I will be linking my social media so you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, wherever tickles your fancy, and I will see you in the next video.